Welcome to the Dawgs Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts, Justin Charles and Josh All.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dawgs Fantasy Football Podcast. Josh All, and I've got Justin Charles back with me because if you watched last week's show, you saw that I was by myself in the studio, and that's because Justin was just moving on down to Florida with the family for a week, going to Disney World, taking the kids down there. And, you know, me and Blake on the other show, Justin, were kind of speculating that, you know, some of the princess encounters at Disney World may have been a lot more dad-driven than perhaps child-driven. But how was the trip to Disney?
It was definitely dad paid for.
Oh, no, that's true.
I will, don't get me wrong. My wife, she was chipping in and stuff too. But it was very exciting, very cool. I was never into Disney at all. And I went like 3 years ago and I was like, it's kind of dope. I like Star Wars. I like all that kind of nerdy stuff. I'm like, this is very cool. But I got to say what's up to Moana. You know, that was so mission accomplished.
I know that's your girl.
Yep. If, I got to do a tier list on Disney princesses. Moana is probably at the top,
She's the 101.
Yeah, she's the 101.
101. That's cool. Yeah, we went to Disney in December, and it's the first time I've been there since I was a kid, and it's changed a lot over the last 20, 25 years. It was a lot of fun. I mean, we had a good time. I thought the Star Wars land was very cool.
Crazy.
Very cool. Just feels like you're there. It's straight out of the movie, and
yes,
I really like that. And then the one thing that I just and my wife made fun of me because she was like, "I can't believe you were so blown away by that." But it was the Cars, like the theater, the animatronic.
So we skipped that because I know the Driving Academy. I know exactly.
Yeah, the Driving Academy.
Like, where was that at? Was that at Animal Kingdom or
no?
See, maybe Hollywood Studios.
I think it was at Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood's dope. Hollywood Studios is
skip
crazy.
It next time. I'm telling you. I don't know why, but it was very lifelike, and I was like, this is. I'm looking around, people like, everybody else is like impressed as I was. Just like, damn, this is And, being like a kind of behind the camera kind of guy a lot of times for a lot of these things and special effects and stuff, it was just, I'm sitting there trying to figure out, like, how are they doing? Like, that's pretty neat.
It is crazy. It is. Some of the stuff they do is crazy. It's not, so like for me, I grew up on Cedar Point. Cedar Point is like, we're going to just shove it to you 100%. Like, you're getting like crazy rides, but like, at Disney, there's just like puppets and stuff singing to you, and you're like, "Oh Jesus, this is crazy. This is a lot." I do know what you mean though, but very cool, very good vacation. Kids geeked out.
Good. I'm glad you guys had a good time. Glad you're back. Glad we're doing fantasy football talk today. Justin's got like a rookie draft scenario that he kind of explained to me. We're going to go through it. We figured if we're going to hash this thing out because it's Dynasty fantasy football related, might as well let you guys in on it and hear about it too.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the news. We got some wide receivers getting some big quiche, and then we're going to be talking about some values at running back and wide receiver, I believe, because we've been talking about quarterbacks. Last week I did 3 value, which I can bring those up to you during that segment. Just get your opinion on my 3 values that I did on last week's episode real quick. So we will talk about all of that. So before we do, make sure you guys like this video, subscribe on YouTube, help us get to 10 subscribers.
Gosh, man.
It's funny because the other show we talk about all the time, we're trying to get to 10,000, and here we are starting from scratch on this one, but just having a good old time doing it. But make sure you guys do that, and then if you could drop us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, that would help as well. So appreciate everybody tuning in. So the news, we'll just kind of go through some stuff here, but I think I covered Nico Collins getting paid last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I think today we don't need to maybe we'll get a little bit of Nico, from you, but what do you think about this whole Jaylen Waddle getting 3 years, about almost $85 million with a $76 million guarantee, it looks like?
I mean, for him, it's great, right? Yeah, that's big time receiver money. The thing that's crazy with Jaylen Waddle is he's an elite talent. He's kind of shown that. He just, for me, there's like always a little bit of injury concerns. But like if I can have Jaylen Waddle on my fantasy team, especially if it's a dynasty team, like dynasty moving forward, Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, he's he's saying he's going to retire probably at the end of 2025. Jaylen Waddle he's an alpha, like he could be an alpha number one type receiver, especially if, the play and the offense is as explosive as it's been, and two, it continues to progress and stuff like that. Man, Tyreek Hill obviously will be your one, but Jaylen Waddle has all the skill sets to be that. And in Dynasty, he should be a coveted piece.
Yeah. So, as a rookie in 2021, before Tyreek Hill was there, he caught, as a rookie, 104 passes. He had 104 receptions for 1,015 yards and 6 touchdowns. So very, very good. I think that was a little bit more under the radar rookies. I forget exactly. There's some other stuff going on that year that I think he kind of got swept under the rug a little bit as far as what he was actually doing on the field.
Correct.
But
I think with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and the numbers that they were putting up, I think it just kind of gets overshadowed.
And then you've got the next year, 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. That was the first year with Tyreek. Last year, a little over 1,000 yards again and 4 touchdowns. So a little bit of a down year. I think he missed a couple games last year.
Missed some games. But like to even have those numbers and then you're playing alongside Tyreek Hill, it's insane. Those could, that's, I wouldn't say it's 100% wide receiver number one numbers. Like he wouldn't be my first round pick unless that's the best guy available. But in a redraft, he's great.
Yeah, in a redraft, if you decide you want to take a running back or two early and then all those top receivers are gone, this is a guy you can get, and you can get those wide receiver 1 weeks. And I think I heard another thing on a fantasy show I was listening to earlier today, actually, and they were talking about how if you're looking at any fantasy players in a 17-game stretch, like, hey, over the 17 games, this guy has to be my wide receiver 1, you're probably playing fantasy football incorrectly. You need to be looking at the season in chunks saying, okay, I've got Jaylen Waddle on my team, but I can't count on him for 17 games because you should not be counting on any player for 17 games in fantasy football. It just doesn't happen. These guys miss games, bye weeks, things like that. Fantasy is never-ending cycle of turning that roster over, whether it's waiver wire or trading or whatever it is. So I thought that was some good advice. But yeah, if you've got Jaylen Waddle on your team, especially like in Dynasty, I think there might be what do you think? Is there like a window right now where maybe you could go out there and maybe poach him a little bit? It would probably be buy low for the long term because you're still going to have to pay, I would imagine, a pretty good penny for him. But there is, whoever the manager is of Jaylen Waddle is going to have the Tyreek Hill in the back of their head. So you go to them with a trade, they're like, oh man, I like Jaylen Waddle. Ooh, but Tyreek Hill's there. Oh, this is a good offer. You know what I mean? Maybe you can get that deal done.
I agree. I think if there is a window, because you got to think when Tyreek Hill's out, his production's going to increase even more, and his production already is crazy. To have over 1,000, 3 consecutive seasons, it's a pretty good start. And then you've got to think that is going to be like kind of alpha QB, or I'm sorry, wide receiver 1 numbers once Tyreek Hill's not there. Tyreek Hill his target share is crazy. What he's bringing in points-wise and yards-wise is nuts. So be a lot of production that can be assumed for Jaylen Waddle. It's nuts. I think this is your window, but you're still paying. Like for me, I'm like, I need a first at least. I would say he could be that guy, especially if the value is only going to increase.
Yeah, he's only 25 years old. So if you kind of look at him as like a 3-year investment, depending on whether you have him, you want to hold him, or if you're trying to trade him or you want to go trade for him, whatever the case may be based on your roster and what kind of situation you're in, for me anyway, like I would look at his value throughout that contract, because when the contract's over, he's up for another one, he'll still be young. He'll be 28. So it's not like, he'll have another probably big contract unless for some reason injuries come in, which you can never predict. Career enders like that. So I wouldn't worry about it. Let's talk about Justin freaking Jefferson, because this dude just got paid. What was it? 4 years, $140 million. I saw he is now the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. So good for him. Dude deserves it. He has been, without a doubt, the best wide receiver in football since he came in. 1,400 yards, 1,600 yards, 1,800 yards. Last season dropped back down. He still had over 1,000, even though he missed
which is wild.
Like half the season. Didn't he miss half the season?
Yes.
Unreal. He missed half the season. He didn't have a good quarterback for when he came back.
Kirk Cousins was out. Yeah. I was going to say, Kirk Cousins went out. So it was just literally rotational.
9 games last year. So yeah, a little less than half he missed.
I mean, if you own Justin Jefferson, my goodness, don't worry.
In one
league. You're not, you don't need any advice here. This is, I mean, it's Justin Jefferson. To me, I guess if you could get him, this would probably be a good opportunity too, because it's maybe there's injury concerns, but I mean, to me, I'm like, he's kind of one of those guys you can't trade. His value, you can't offer me enough first round picks for this dude.
He's 24. I don't know when he turns 25. I don't have his birthday.
That is crazy.
But still super young. I mean, just what he has done. He's just shy of 6,000 yards. And he's got 30 touchdowns over his first 4 seasons in the NFL.
Crazy plays. Like, the dude is just, like, he's that guy. He's the dude. He's your number one receiver, and by a good margin. I mean, he's awesome.
Yes. Now, if you are on a completely rebuilding team and it's garbage, and he is like the only stud player you've got on your team, that's the scenario where I'm going out and I'm trying to find the highest value I can possibly get for him. Because, if you think that your rebuild is going to be 3 years until I'm legitimately competing for a championship, you might consider moving him for as many draft picks as you can, maybe some younger stud wide receivers, or, maybe like 3 firsts. And I'm trying to think of like a good young player, but if you could get your hands on like a Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors or one of these young rookies this year, plus some first round picks, that would kind of help in your rebuild, I think. Because I tell people this all the time, especially in dynasty leagues, like if you're rebuilding, having these big times, like one big time stud on your team doesn't help your team. You're just going to lose with a stud on your team.
Yeah. Yep.
So you got to kind of play it like the stock market. If it's not doing anything for you, but it's super valuable, you should just sell it.
I guess there could be concerns as far as like who the quarterback's going to be. Is it going to be Sam Darnold? Is it going to be JJ? I mean, I think he's good enough that it doesn't matter who his quarterback is. I mean, obviously the guy still has to get him the ball, but he's going to command so many targets, especially on a team that's just loaded with talent. I mean, Jordan Addison is really good. Jordan Addison is just completely overshadowed because Justin Jefferson is that good. Mm-hmm. You got TJ Hawkinson, but he's going to command a lot of targets. He's going to have a lot of catches, a lot of yards. Unless the injury bug, no concerns at all. Start it. Don't even worry about it. Lock it in.
Yep, definitely. And then I guess what's your opinion on Nico Collins last week getting paid?
I like Nico Collins a lot. I think it's kind of crazy. I'm interested to see what the Texans offense looks like. Because like on paper, you're like, they're loaded. Mm-hmm. Like CJ Stroud has a lot of really, really good weapons, and he looked great last year. And you got to think adding Diggs, if anything, like if Diggs comes in, he's like that number one receiver again. It'll take away from Nico Collins a little bit. But Nico Collins he's really good. He has great chemistry with CJ Stroud. I guess you have Tank Dell too, who's another guy that's really, really good. So I guess just a lot of mouths to feed, but like if I have Nico Collins, I'm excited about his future.
Yeah, I was looking into some stuff with the Texans, and what CJ Stroud and that offense was able to do last year in terms of putting up receiving numbers for the wide receivers in that offense. I mean, Tank Dell was getting his.
Yeah.
And if you remember, Noah Brown was getting his.
Yeah.
And Nico Collins still got his and led everything. So I think even like you said, I don't think Stephon Diggs is going to be Buffalo Bills wide receiver one level anymore, but I think he can still be serviceable. I think they paid Nico like he's the wide receiver one. I think he is the wide receiver one in this offense. I think it's going to be a good spread of targets to these guys. But the thing with Nico that I hear from everybody is just how he did his on efficiency. Like, he is very good with the ball in his hands. Once you get him the ball, he can make things happen after the catch. And that's where he doesn't need 150 targets or whatever in a season to put up wide receiver 1 numbers. He did it last year on, I forget how many targets he had, but most receivers can't do that on that kind of target share.
Yep.
Target volume, I should say.
But I'm very big on Nico Collins, and I'm a big CJ Stroud fan. I like Stroud a lot. I have him in some dynasty leagues, so that's even more exciting. But you got to think that CJ Stroud's just going to continue to progress and get better. And man, the upside for that offense, if everything's clicking, like even like it did like last year, they're going to be real tough. They're going to be really, really good.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of the Houston Texans real quick, maybe we'll just let's just kind of, we'll save your rookie draft thing for the end.
Yeah.
Because let's shift into values, and it just came up in my head. But how much of a value right now do you think Joe Mixon is?
This episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Dog Pack Father's Day is right around the corner. So what do you give the man who has essentially everything he already needs? I mean, it's always so hard at Father's Day and on dad's birthdays and things like that. So what does this guy even really need? Well, let me make it easy for you guys. Get him steak and burgers and brats and jumbo franks and chicken and everything that Omaha Steaks has to offer, because dads want meat, and it's the perfect gift because you know he's going to use it. It's grilling season. Your dad, your grandpa, these guys, you as a dad, we're going to be grilling out all summer long. So get things kicked off the right way with Omaha Steaks for Father's Day. It's what I get my dad, my grandpa, my father-in-law every year for Father's Day, because I know they're going to use it. They love the food, and it just goes a long way. They can continue. I mean, obviously they grill out once, twice, 3 times, and they just keep using the food that you got them for Father's Day. It's the perfect gift. And right now, when you go to omahasteaks.com, use promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, when you check out for an additional discount when you shop the gourmet gift packages for Father's Day. The Father's Day experts at Omaha Steaks are making this very easy for you guys to put a smile on the big guys' faces this summer. They've got hand-selected gift packages starting at just $89 for Father's Day. And like I said, omahasteaks.com, use that promo code DAWGS when you check out for an additional discount on your order. So don't stress, don't fret, make Father's Day easy for all the dads in your life. And if your wife or your kids are saying, hey, Dad, what do you want for Father's Day? Just tell them, get me some damn good food from Omaha Steaks. omahasteaks.com, promo code DAWGS, DAWGS when you check out. Shop the Father's Day selection, all their gift packages starting at $89. And with that promo code DAWGS when you check out, you get an additional discount on your order. So don't wait. Get everything ready to go now. omahasteaks.com, promo code DAWGS. Get all the dads in your life the perfect gift for Father's Day.
I think he's still got good value. And in a PPR, I'm still real big. I think if there was a little bit more competition there as far as like somebody to challenge him in that running back room, I guess I'd be a little bit nervous. But Joe Mixon's been very good for a long time, especially in PPR leagues. It seems like he just catches so much out of the backfield. Now, new offense, all that. He has the ability to be a running back one, on a team, especially if you could let him slide a little bit, that you could get him a little bit later. I'm guessing like maybe depending on how people are attacking running back, you could get him like 4th, 5th, something like that. Maybe even later than that.
So I'm just looking at his ranking. So on Fantasy Pros, he is RB 15 right now off the board. Okay. I'm not sure. It doesn't show me like what round that would be in terms of ADP, but his ADP puts him at RB 15. Okay. So just looking at guys in his range, so like right ahead of him, would you take Kenneth Walker, Rachaad White, or Joe Mixon?
Joe Mixon.
Yeah,
Joe Mixon. I like Kenneth Walker a lot. I got a lot of Kenneth Walker. He's a great running back, but who knows? Zach Charbonnet could come in. Zach Charbonnet is very good pass catching back, and Kenneth Walker does not have that. And then Rachaad White makes me a little nervous. Like
he's not.
I gotta feel like he's not, but he's great. Great pass catching back, and they get him a lot of targets, and I think that's why you see him in a lot of top 10 finishes and stuff like that on the season. But as far as like I've said for a couple of years, that anybody that's number 2 on that depth chart, I think there's an opportunity to come up. But I thought it was going to be Sean Tucker, and he was like a late dart that a lot of people threw. And then I think the kid that they took this year, I can't even think of his name right off the top of my head. They took another young running back in the draft.
And Bucky Irving.
And yes. And I think what I'm hearing, he has the opportunity to maybe come up and I'm like, his numbers, if his production continues like that, I guess he's a great asset. You know what I mean? You're getting technically an RB1, like a top 10 running back. That's great production, but I don't trust it. Give me Joe Mixon.
Yeah, and then going right after Joe Mixon, guys like James Cook, David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara. I think I'm taking Joe Mixon over all those guys too. I mean, James Cook, they really don't want to use him as a workhorse at all in Buffalo. They're trying to find somebody else to handle some, inside the 10 kind of work. And then David Montgomery, don't really know what's going to happen with him as far as, his workload, because Jahmyr Gibbs is so good and they're going to try to get him the ball. And then Aaron Jones is older, moving over to Minnesota now. Don't really know what that offense is going to look like. Alvin Kamara, same kind of thing. He's older, showed a little bit of inefficiency last year.
Yeah, going back down.
Little decline. James Conner's old and always misses, a handful of games.
But really reliable. James Conner.
Yeah.
So I like James Conner. I like James Conner as like a down the road guy. I think James Conner is an absolute steal every year. Every year, nobody drafts James Conner.
RB20.
Take him every year. And the guy has won me some fantasy championships. But I agree, though. I liked what I saw from Cook like the last 5 games after they got rid of Dorsey, and it looked like they kind of focused on running the ball. I did like that version, and his production was nice. But there can be some inconsistent games in there. You could get 20, you could get 6. But give me Joe Mixon in that group.
Yeah, so the guy that I did, and I don't know if you looked at anything with the episode last week, but the running back value that I had is clear down here at running back 26 off the board. And it's a guy who was going as running back 8 last year. Any idea who it is?
So he was at running back 8 last year, and he's going 26 now.
Yep.
Let's say,
I'll help you.
Is it Nick Chubb?
Dude, Nick Chubb is at running back 27, right behind this guy, and this guy is Tony Pollard.
So that's one of the kind of crazier things that I'm wondering about going into this season is seeing what the Titans do as far as, because I've been stashing Spears in almost every dynasty league that I'm in, and the draft, I'm like, hey, all we have to do is just not let them take a running back that can challenge Tajay Spears, and we're in the good. Like, we got a nice flex running back at worst. And then Tony Pollard gets signed, and I'm like
day one,
yikes.
like day one of free agency, the Titans said, we need a running back, and it's Tony Pollard.
And so that's the thing is, like, I could still see Spears being a nice, like a flex 2 option or something like that, and like a deeper super flex, or even like if you need somebody to fill in on a bye week or an injury, I wouldn't be nervous just because if it's PPR, you're going to get yours. But so who between those two, between Spears and Pollard, do you have who's going over who? Because I feel like Spears probably has the edge with the age.
Spears I'm talking redraft here.
Okay, all right. Just even redraft, I'm curious.
So redraft, Tajay Spears is going at RB 35, so 9 spots after Tony Pollard. I think that it's going to be, a 60-40 split at the worst. It might be 50-50, really. And the thing is, my whole argument last week was Tony Pollard, the years that he was the most effective for fantasy football is when he was in a split backfield.
Yes.
And he was the 40% guy or the 30% guy to Zeke's, 65 or 70, and he was able to produce on high efficiency. We saw him last year, and maybe the injury coming off that broken leg still was hampering him. We've seen that happen with guys before, but I think that he's a running back that can't handle big volume workload. Get him in I like both these guys, to be honest with you. I would prioritize Pollard personally, but if you don't get Pollard and Tajay Spears is sitting there a little bit later in your draft at RB 35, take him.
I mean, if Callahan brings that same kind of offense with him, Spears, or Spears could be Joe Mixon-esque, because he's very explosive. He's nice. Mm-hmm. I've been stashing him, and I'm just curious how that all plays out in that committee. That's what it sounds like, though. I'm hearing 60-40. 50-50 would be great. 50-50.
Yes.
Give me that on a bye week.
I guess my only hang up. So are you between these two guys, which one would you prioritize? Like, who do you favor?
If it's
in redraft,
man, it's in redraft. I think you got to go Pollard, because you got to think you'll get more of like the standard. Just he could get first and second down carries. But I guess it just depends on if
they're both so similar. Like they're both get the receiving back and the not the big bruising. I don't know, man. But it just, to me, when the organization has Tyjae Spears sitting there, and we did the same thing as soon as Derrick Henry, they didn't bring him back. It's like, hey, wheels up for Tyjae Spears. Looks like he's going to be the lead back. Like, I was trying to trade for him in a couple dynasty leagues. Yeah. And then day one of free agency, this regime, who had nothing to do with drafting Tyjae Spears, immediately goes out and signs Tony Pollard. And I'm like, withdrawal trade. I don't know if I want this guy anymore.
Right. I still think there's an upside. I do think there's an upside to it. Maybe not as much as we anticipated, let's say 4 months ago. At worst, though, I see him. He could be a nice flex play all day.
Are there any other running back values that you wanted to talk about?
It's interesting seeing Nick Chubb at 27. I have a scenario, I guess. It's a 3-keeper league. Okay. And I got a buddy. He's got a lot of good players. I would say he's got 5 or 6 players that are easy keepers that are going to go back into the draft, but he also has Nick Chubb on his IR. And I was like, so what are you doing? And I was like, are you using a keeper? Because basically those 3 guys are automatically locked into your roster. I guess you could IR Nick Chubb right off the bat, get the first best available player after the draft, who's probably still decent. I know last year it would be like an Elijah Moore, like a Gabe Davis, like still a nice, in a redraft league, that's not a bad fill-in on, depending week to week. But man, Nick Chubb, I don't know if you can take him super, super high. I feel like you have to take him with the plan that you have other guys that are going to be able to fill in for quite a while, and it's still a risky play.
I mean, we obviously
don't even know what we're getting.
We obviously do a Browns podcast, so we're plugged into the Browns and everything. Nick Chubb, I mean, it could be first half of the season till he gets back. We have no idea, and we have no idea what he's going to look like when he does come back. I mean, he's 28, going to be 29. It was a very gruesome knee injury, the second major one of his career. I mean, the first one, he was young, 21 or something?
Yeah.
19, I don't remember. But, so it's hard to say, but there's other guys on the list here going around Nick Chubb and going after him that in a redraft league, I don't know if I can take Nick Chubb with the knowledge that he's going to spend probably half the season on IR.
Right.
Are you taking Nick Chubb over Brian Robinson in Washington?
And so I would say probably not. Well, Brian Robinson's going to be the one probably for the most part, unless Austin Eckler grows his legs back and is back to old form. But I mean,
what about Javonte Williams?
I like Javonte Williams. I'm probably taking.
He's at 29. He's 2 spots behind Nick.
It's tricky too because a lot of people wait till that week right in between the end of preseason, beginning of week 1 to do their drafts. So I think there'll be a lot more info out there.
Oh yeah.
On what really is going on and like what the timeline really is looking like. But you got to say right now, when there's no real information out there, Dynasty, I think you would think about it a little more. I think like a Nick Chubb for Javonte Williams straight up, I'm probably still holding Nick Chubb just out of the fact that it's Nick Chubb, and when he's peak performance, he's very, very good, even in PPR.
I guess it depends on, it would depend on who my other keepers are in that kind of a league, because Personally, I would not hold Nick Chubb. I would not hold a guy that's going to be on IR, especially whenever he's as old as Nick Chubb. And I know that if I keep him this year and I only get like maybe half the season out of him and he's not quite what he used to be, but now I'm hoping he's going to be, am I keeping him again heading into next year?
Right. Because
if I bite the bullet this year, well, I better do it again next year. Otherwise, why'd I do it this year?
So these are some of the players that he may or may not keep or not keep. Lamar Jackson, you're keeping Lamar Jackson. He's locked into your team. That's a no-brainer. Devontae Adams. Are you keeping Devontae Adams or are you keeping Nick Chubb?
I would keep Devontae Adams.
Matt Stafford. I would keep.
Is it just a 1 QB?
Super flex.
Oh, now I'm with
flex, 3 keeper. Amari Cooper. You keeping Amari Cooper? You keeping Nick Chubb?
Depends on who my other receivers are, but man, Amari is just so.
You got Devontae Adams. I mean, it's.
How many wide receivers do you start?
2 wide receivers and then 2 flex.
Okay.
Got some other guys. He's got TJ Hawkinson. He's
starting on IR.
Same kind of timeline. I got to think probably losing 4 weeks right off the bat.
Yep.
Some of the other guys aren't that great. No knock on Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson, I would take the risk there and just. You figure you're throwing Russell Wilson back in, you're probably going to be able to just draft Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that's right.
If you really like Russell Wilson like that, you're probably getting him back on your team. Even like a Raheem Mostert. It's, you know what I mean? Like, if he keeps playing like he's been playing the last few years, that's a real argument.
RB24 in redraft. I'm just looking at the list here.
Yeah.
He's actually just a couple spots ahead of Nick.
Right. So kind of crazy.
That is. So I guess just real quick, if I scroll, because obviously we're not going to sit here and talk about CMC, Breece Hall, Saquon. No. These guys aren't values in your draft because you're going to have to use a higher pick to get them.
Correct.
But I think a guy like Zamir White's down at RB23. I think there's a really good possibility he's got a big workload this year.
Yeah.
So he'd be very good for your redraft leagues. Now, long term, I don't know what he's going to do in Dynasty. So that might be a guy where if I'm like, I have him, but I don't really know if I'm going to be competing this year. I might be trying to get him to a contender for because they're probably like, hey, I'll give you. Might even be able to get like a late first out of it or something.
Yeah, if you get a late first,
early second,
and you're like, I guess it depends on what you got going on. Because like I have Zamir White in the league, and I'm like, I would hold him just to see what you can get. What happens if the window shuts? Oh well, what did you probably? I think I did a trade with you for Zamir White, and I gave up Trey Lance and I can't remember who else. But I got Russell Wilson and Zamir White back. Oh, a pick.
It was a second round pick. Yeah.
So I have Zamir White. I don't think that unless you get like a crazy offer, like if you can get a first in this year's draft for Zamir White, I think that's worth looking into. I think that's worth considering how high it up is.
Yeah, and if you're a contender and you think you've got a shot at the playoffs and maybe taking home a ship this year, and you've got Zamir White, I would hold him unless somebody comes with a screaming
crazy offer.
Yeah, offer. But again, like if you're rebuilding and you've got him, he's a guy that I'd be trying to get onto a contender's team because they're probably going to pay up for it. But anyway, back
and
to
looked. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I was going to move on.
I just see he looked in when Josh Jacobs missed those games. His fill-in was Josh Jacobs-esque.
It looked nice.
It was, those numbers were kind of similar still, so he's worth keeping if you got him.
This episode is brought to you by Danger Coffee. We talk about how Danger Coffee is made free from mold toxins that are in 45% of the world's coffee, but that's not all that Danger Coffee has to offer. Mineral and nutrient deficiencies are a big deal. They make you feel sick, tired, stressed, and they can give you brain fog. These deficiencies negatively affect your immune system, your digestion, sleep, metabolism. Have you ever wondered why you get an initial burst from your coffee, but then you get that little crash not long after? Danger Coffee's patent-pending process remineralizes your body with more than 50 trace minerals and electrolytes, leaving you more energized, engaged, powerful. These micronutrients enter the cells to boost performance. They bind to toxins to provide detoxification support. I know that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line, guys, is minerals matter, and most of us really don't get enough of them on a daily basis. Danger Coffee delivers micronutrients, plus it gives you access to the minerals you already have.
Head to dangercoffee.com, use our code DAWGS, DAWGS, for 10% off your order. And that code can be used over and over. So you get 10% off every order you make using code DAWGS. It's time to start every day off with a cup of coffee that gets you going and actually keeps you going. dangercoffee.com, code DAWGS. Scroll down here for redraft. I mean, just like RB30 and beyond. Okay. Zach Moss, probably the lead back in Cincinnati. Devin Singletary, probably the lead back in New York. Gus Edwards, probably the lead back in LA. Jaylen Warren, don't know what Pittsburgh's offense is going to look like under Arthur Smith, but he's way more explosive than Najee Harris. And then, of course, Austin Eckler, we already talked about Spears. Zeke back in Dallas doesn't do much for me, but Jonathan Brooks down here in Carolina at RB38. And then right behind him is Trey Benson from Arizona at RB39. Those are two rookie running backs that I would be looking at big time late in draft, especially if I'm going wide receiver heavy early.
Yep. So Carolina's running back room super crazy right now. They still have Hubbard. They still have Miles Sanders. Now they have Brooks. I think
they bring in Rashad Penny too.
They brought Rashad Penny in. I still like Rashad Penny a lot. I wish he was good.
I shouldn't say that. Yeah, I wish he could stay healthy. But
yes, yeah. And then I guess the Trey Benson one's interesting too, because you're going to back up James Conner you got to think the offense is probably going to be pretty good.
One of my low key favorite under the radar offenses this year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if at 30, what did you say it was? 38?
Yeah.
For Trey Benson?
39.
It's a nice handcuff, too.
Yeah.
If you take James Conner, Trey Benson's a nice handcuff to have. Man. And then Jonathan Brooks might end up being the starter. It would be, I think whole new offense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's one that you're going to have to see how everything plays out at camp. Who's getting the first team reps, who the coach is like, because it's basically a whole new system again. So I would definitely be interested in them.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would say just a couple more guys real quick, and then we'll just maybe do a few receivers here. But
okay.
Moving on down here, RB48, Kendre Miller from New Orleans had a ton of injuries last year. Did not play a whole lot, but the last week of the season, he did play. He had a very nice game. He showed some flashes, and, if Alvin Kamara gets hurt or just loses a step because he's older now, I mean, Kendre Miller he would be a good late-round flyer, in my opinion, and so would a guy, down here at 49 is Rico Dowdle from Dallas. I'm making sure that I get Rico Dowdle on all my teams because he's a running back that I get super late that could end up just being an RB1 for his team, and maybe a lock and load RB2 for my fantasy team.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Very interesting. So how do you think that split is going to work in Dallas? Do you think that it's going to be Zeke because Zeke looked pretty decent coming in with New England when he had to come in and step into RB1. I thought that he wasn't old Zeke. He wasn't that guy that we knew 5 years ago, but his numbers were good enough he could have been a flex or an RB2 on a team. But
I love Ezekiel Elliott. Thank you so much for everything you did at Ohio State. You were so much fun to watch in Dallas when you were younger.
Yes.
But I will bypass Ezekiel Elliott RB36 all day, every day, in every single draft to get Rico Dowdle at 49. That's just the way I'm looking at it this year. It might start out like a pretty even split, or Zeke might be more the lead guy the first maybe 4 weeks of the season, but I think over the course of the season, Rico Dowdle's going to take over from him. That's just my opinion. But I would take a shot on him late for sure.
Deep sleeper there.
Yep.
There's a dart throw, and I don't even think it's a dart throw.
That's the thing. Yeah.
You could probably, depending on how many teams there are, how big the rosters are, there's a chance that, depending on how far he slips, maybe you don't even draft him. You can just add him to your team. I don't know depends on how many rounds are in the draft and all that stuff, bench spots, but
yep.
Damn near RB 50. That's pretty far down.
That is very far down. You're right. Good chance he might not even get drafted. So I'm just kind of looking at the time here, and let's bypass. Let's hold off, and we'll do some wide receiver values next week. We talked about a lot of running backs here, and we had to get into the news. I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about your rookie draft scenario.
Okay.
So break it down for everybody listening.
Okay, so I talked with a buddy of mine, a commissioner of my league, and he says, hey, I need your keepers set in. This is basically a 20-spot keeper league. It's a dynasty.
Okay.
Deep dynasty, super flex league, PPR. And we're talking. He said, just so you know, probably going to be a starting quarterback going into the rookie draft. And I was like, oh, no kidding. And currently, my starting quarterbacks are C.J. Stroud, Deshaun Watson, and Aiden O'Connell. I don't even know if Aiden O'Connell is going to be the starting quarterback, but he's a quarterback on my team, and I have Hendon Hooker also that I drafted last year. So I'm picking at 1-6, and he kind of dropped enough clues that I figured out that Baker Mayfield was going back in. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting here at 1-6. It's a super flex, so it's, you're going to get a starting quarterback. But I guess the question that I was going to ask you is like, where would you see Baker Mayfield going in a rookie super flex dynasty draft?
It's interesting. Very interesting. So 1-6 definitely puts you out of the running for Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
For a long time, Drake May was kind of like super flex, 102, 103 locked in, and now he slipped down. Nobody likes the New England Patriots or using anybody for their team, for their fantasy teams. So I don't know. I mean, you're Drake May. You said that somebody before you's probably taken J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, so I think that the guy before me, he needs a quarterback. And he said, I guess a week or so ago, I'm like grilling him like, hey, so what are you doing at 1-5? Well, talk to me, man. Where's your head at? And he's like, probably I'm sitting here with Daniel Jones and Justin Herbert. And I was like, well, hey, Justin Herbert's nice. Daniel Jones, that's not great. That's if I was a Daniel Jones owner, I would be super nervous heading into this year. I would be actively looking for a third quarterback if I didn't already have one. But I was like, okay, he's like, I'm taking JJ McCarthy. I was like, starting quarterback, rookie, like, makes sense. Maybe a little bit of a reach, depending on, what everybody needs. But so I was thinking, I'm like, well, the way I see it breaking down when I like do the mock in my head, I see myself having either the option to take Drake May or Rome Odunze. Or, to me, I can't take Baker Mayfield at 1-6. Like, I think there's just too much upside with other guys. Obviously, you're getting a starter. And like we talked about it before, no shade at Baker Mayfield. But although he has lots of weapons like Mike Evans, Godwin, like that's a nice duo of receivers to throw to. The loss of the offensive coordinator going to Carolina, I think, is going to be a pretty big deal. I think that's going to be, honestly, I think that's going to be a bigger deal for Bryce Young and having him, Dave Canales, on that team than it will be for Baker Mayfield. So I would honestly pass. I guess, like, if he came back around, he was second round, depending on who's sitting there, to get a third quarterback, a third starter on my team, because I don't think Kyle Trask is taking his spot. I would say they'll roll with Baker all year probably, unless things really go off the rails. But maybe think about it in the second round. But I couldn't do a mid first for Baker Mayfield. And you never told me exactly what you were thinking about doing either before we started this. So that's cool to hear.
Yes, because I wouldn't either. I get it. He's a starter. He got a contract this season and all that kind of stuff. But, he is not a high-end fantasy quarterback. You're locking him in as a QB1 at best. He'll never be a QB1. He doesn't rush. He provides nothing there. If he doesn't have high yardage and touchdown totals, which with Baker Mayfield, it's 1 year he's up, next year he's down, up, down, up, down. That's been the pattern. So last year was up. So if the pattern continues, this year will be down. And yeah, I would take a swing on more unknown upside at 106 knowing that, Baker can probably be my quarterback too, but that's it. at best.
Like let's say in a crazy world, Malik Neighbors is there at 1-6. I'm taking Malik Neighbors. I'm not even second guessing myself at all.
Right.
Or I'm needing a quarterback or not. Because to me, I'm like, well, if let's say it's Baker Mayfield, I like the upside, like long term with Drake May. And if you're in a position to like take Drake May at 1-6 or 1-7 and you can let him sit on your bench or even, plug and play him here if he eventually takes over that starting spot, I like it. I think you're getting good value. But like for me, I'm like, I'd rather take the upside of a Rome Odunze who he might take a back. It might be like a JSN thing for a little bit with Chicago, but eventually you would think that he could come out, at least be wide receiver 2 down the road with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. And then depending on what Caleb Williams, does the next few years. But yeah, I'm passing. I'm not taking Bo Nix. I'm not taking Bo Nix at 1-6. Maybe crazy world Caleb Williams falls to me at 1-6, but definitely probably not.
What would you do then if the guy in front of you who said he was taking JJ decided he was going to take Baker and JJ was sitting there whenever you were on the clock? You had JJ, Drake May, and Rome.
Give me Rome.
Yeah.
Give me Rome. And I'm in a situation where I need a quarterback, like there's nothing really set in stone there, but I think just for me, like it just makes sense to take Rome Odunze.
You've got Aiden O'Connell. I'm sure you could probably trade for Gardner Minshew. If you need to. There's we saw last year 66 guys started NFL games at the quarterback position, so there will be guys available on the waiver wire. There will be backups that you can get in trades. Mm-hmm. Joe Flacco was going to be a fantasy MVP toward the back half of the season. So
crazy. Yep.
Guys sitting in free agency who aren't even signed right now. Who knows? Right? Ryan Tannehill. Who knows?
Yep.
Could be this year's Joe Flacco. Nobody knows. But
I just dropped Joe Flacco today off my off one of my teams because I was just like, well, it was a good run. It was a good run while it lasted.
Yep. But you're 40. And
yeah.
All right. Well, cool. So I hope everybody, got some value out of our values, and, drop them in the comments, anything that you guys are looking at in your leagues. If you guys have questions and stuff about, fantasy football, or you've got a trade scenario you've been offered, or you're thinking about trading this guy for that or whatever, put it in the comments. We'd love to hear about it. We'll give you guys our opinions. Like, that sounds like a good trade, or no, probably wouldn't do that, or maybe you should consider adding this, whatever. We'll give you guys some feedback for sure, because this stuff, we love talking about it. So hit us up. But that is it for today. Like I said, next week we'll dive into some wide receiver values and some news. We'll see what's going on between now and then, and we'll cover it all for you. So till we talk to you guys in the next one, Justin, I need to get a good sign off for this show, man. Like, I keep doing this main Dogs closing.
What do you want?
I don't know.
I
think I just want to say, hey, catch you guys in the next one.
Catch you guys in the next one.
Catch you guys in the next one.
Dog, run it. Right. Catch you guys in the next one, huh?
Catch you guys in the next one.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Fantasy Football Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow the podcast on social media at The Dawgs Fantasy.